A very big welcome to everyone to this evening, to our first of this webinar season series that we will be running over the next couple of months. We're very fortunate to have a nice list of guests that will be and presenters that will be joining us over this series to provide you guys with some information on a lot of different domains across the board. We had a chat to a few parents and a few coaches after the season just to see what activity and topics might be worthwhile engaging for you guys, and we've come up with a few topics and activities that we think will be really worthwhile having you all listen to. So thanks for joining tonight, and I think just reiterating what I'd mentioned in that earlier email is that it's been a really tough season for probably all athletes from both states, you know, managing lockdowns and school and on snow time and probably the frustration of having a second year where a lot of competitions were affected and not being able to do necessarily what you guys love doing, and that's being out there on the snow and around each other. So we certainly appreciate that this season has been really tough, and then we thought this presentation tonight would be a fantastic way to kind of get the ball rolling with this webinar series around some of the challenges that you guys have in balancing your everyday life with your sporting life. So before we do get into what tonight's presentation will be all about, I'd just like to mention that obviously those that haven't met me before, my name is Ben Bond. I do a lot of work with the Emerging Talent Program. I'm full-time with Snow Australia and work quite closely with the Performance Pathway. Tonight's presentation, it will be recorded, so for those that haven't had the opportunity to jump on board, you certainly will have the opportunity to watch this webinar down the track. Everyone seems to be muted for now, which is fantastic. Certainly don't be afraid to unmute yourself and ask a question throughout the presentation, or alternatively, if you do have access to the chat, feel free to put a question in there, which we may bring up in the presentation, or we may wait till the end if we think that it's more relevant addressing that question at the end of the presentation. We'd also like you to have your smartphones handy. So generally we discourage use of smartphones as we conduct these webinars, but there will be a bit of interaction from DJ tonight. So if you guys do have your smartphones or your iPhones handy, that'd be fantastic. And then without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter for tonight. So that is Daniel Josifovsky, who is the Snow Australia Athlete Wellbeing and Engagement Lead. We call Daniel DJ, it's just a little bit easier with reference to his last name. So DJ's role focuses on holistically supporting elite athletes to find the balance of the requirements outside of the daily training and competition environment and to enhance their performance outcomes. DJ comes to Snow Australia on a maternity cover fill with his nominal role at the AIS in the People Development and Wellbeing team. He's got over 5 years experience working in the high performance system and has played a supportive role establishing the AW&E strategy and developed a number of engagement initiatives to position elite athletes as role models in the community. So we hope tonight will provide some insights and focus on the importance of managing life and sport for successful performance outcomes. And you'll be presented with some information on the reality of being an elite athlete or pre-elite athlete and the importance of athlete wellbeing and engagement. And DJ will no doubt provide some tools for successful planning and decision making into the future. So really happy to have you on board, DJ. Looking forward to the presentation tonight, and I'm sure everyone else is as well. So feel free to take it away.
Awesome, thanks Bondi, and hello everyone. I know I haven't met many of you guys before, but hopefully won't keep you guys here for too long. I know some of you guys are still at school, so you've possibly been online all day, or not all day, but for most of the day, so I don't want to keep you guys hanging for too long. But like Bondi said, my name's Daniel Josifovsky. I am the Athlete Wellbeing and Engagement Lead at Snow Australia. Just a little bit about my background. I'm originally from Jindabyne, but I live in Canberra now. I grew up in Jindabyne. I'm not an athlete in itself, but I do play rugby for the Mighty Bush Pigs, for those Jindabyne athletes that are on call. Like Ben said, I've been working in high performance sport for over 5 years now, and in this role for the last 3 months, and I'm really excited to kind of embed myself into this role and help and support you guys along the way. Just before we get going, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land that we all meet on today. I'm coming from Ngunnawal country, and I wish to pay my respect to elders past, present, emerging, and acknowledge the contribution Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play in sport and society. So can everyone see my screen? Those people that have cameras on, if you can just give me a thumbs up, awesome. So today we are just going to go through a few things, mainly introductory items around athlete wellbeing and engagement. We're going to talk a little bit about finding the right balance, understanding your identity and values, looking at ways that life and sport journey progresses. We'll talk a little bit about the mental health continuum, and then we'll touch base on dual career and some top tips for you guys to take away. So before we kick things off, I just want to show you this little video. It goes for about 2 minutes, just to give you a really high-level overview of what athlete wellbeing and engagement is. Obviously, this video was established by the AIS. The AIS set up athlete wellbeing and engagement over 3 years ago now, and now more than ever, there's a bigger emphasis on making sure that athletes are supported off the snow as much as they're supported on snow. So I'll play this video and give you guys a little bit of an overview. Alrighty, so that was just a quite high level overview of what athlete wellbeing and engagement is. As outlined in the video, AW&E, as it's short for, is underpinned by 5 different areas: mental health, career and education, personal development, conduct, professionalism, and engagement. The importance of introducing AW&E to you is that it promotes athletes having dual careers in high performance sport. Whether this being through study and work, this becomes applicable to you as a pathway and emerging athlete, because things that you learn in school, sport, university, and through experiences in your sporting career will enable you to transition into different domains in your life, whether that's going from a pathway skier through to an elite skier, or when you decide to retire from sport, because one day that will happen. Athlete wellbeing engagement also enables athletes to have an identity away from sport through connecting with communities and supporting overall mental health and wellbeing outcomes. And lastly, AW&E focuses on progression by strengthening your networks in and away from sport, evolving and developing through pathways and key transition points in your life. So I want to ask you guys to get out your phones, if you've got phones, and scan this QR code for me. And there's a question there that's going to ask you what you're currently doing right now in your life. It's asking whether or not you're studying and working, or you're studying and focusing on your sport. So I can get you guys just to scan that QR code for me. And if you don't have a phone, you can type Menti into your browser and enter in that code, and I'll bring up my screen so we can see where everyone is at the moment. So it'd be good to give me a bit of an indication on where we're at. So I think you guys can see my screen live. Obviously, live results are coming up. So most of you guys are studying at the moment, and sport. We've got a few that are working and studying and sport at the same time, which is good. Working in sport, which is great, but majority of you guys study only in sport. And then we've got a couple that are other. Be nice to know what those others are. We can chat about that later. But that's great to see that there's a bit of variety within this group. Obviously, a lot of you guys are studying right now, and we will focus a lot on people that are studying. Bring back my presentation. Alrighty. So finding the right balance. So most of you have probably heard the term eat, sleep, train, repeat. Whilst it might be a good meme or a motivator, it does encourage a singular focus on sport and performance. And many people believe more is better, but really is it? The reality of just focusing on one thing, whether that being an elite skier or snowboarder, can often put more pressure and demands on you when you put all your eggs in one basket. Competitions become all or nothing, success or failure, and this becomes a risky proposition for longevity in sport. And longevity in sport is such an important probably word that I will probably highlight, because as athletes can have really short careers in sport. You can have an injury and it can take you out straight away. So our role as service providers is to try and keep you guys in the game as long as we can. And whether that's someone like Bondi, who's a physio trying to keep athletes fit and healthy with injuries, or if it's someone like me that's trying to get some balance for your life, so you've got something to go to when you leave sport. Well, it's important to have 100% focus on training and competing. It's just as important to have a personal life outside of sport. So let's look at this as a way of recharging your batteries. The demands of sport tends to increase as you progress your pathways, with the big emphasis placed on nutrition, training, competition, travel, recovery. They all become relevant components and time consuming in your life. Whilst on the other hand, you still need to have time for a social life, going to school or university, spending time with your family, or working a job. It certainly becomes a balancing act. If it's done correctly, it will reap you benefits and make you a successful person and athlete. And you'll have just heard me just refer to you as an athlete and a person, and I will touch on that a little bit later about understanding your identity. To show you firsthand, research was carried out by the AIS, which found the importance of balancing sport and life and the benefits it has to overall performance and athlete well-being. And there's a few quotes up there that I probably won't read out to you all right now, but you can have a look on the screen just to see what some of these athletes had said. And these are Australian athletes. The one that obviously resonates well with me is the last one. As you can see, that there is potential risks with having a singular focus, and even to this extent as an athlete identity. So understanding your identity. To help us manage balance, understanding and distinguishing your identity is key to be able to separate you as a person, a student, a friend, and the athlete. Elite athletes often strongly associate their sport with their identities. It seems silly not to, and there's benefits down the track if you're a successful athlete. You make huge time commitments and you're passionate about your sport and you're good at it. And you should be proud and feel accomplished of what you're achieving if you're representing your state, your country, and your community. However, The mistake of placing too much self-worth on your athlete identity can severely impact your performance and development as a person outside of sport, because one day you'll eventually retire or you'll leave competing altogether. So there's two sides to our identity. Our private identity is the way we view ourselves, which includes our attitudes, beliefs, feelings, and emotions. And our public identity, on the other hand, is concerned with how we think others see us, or indeed many judge us. Where some people may think they are opposite in a spectrum, in fact, they are very closely connected. Like it or not, the way we believe others view us affects how we view ourselves. This is true for even the humblest athlete. The result is an expectation, imagined or not. And with the world that we live in right now, we're so connected with the internet and social media, it becomes more and more problematic. So if you solely focus on being an athlete and not engaging in things outside of sport, you will not be exposed to other meaningful experiences. And by meaningful experiences, I mean life events that contribute to defining you as a person. And this can come from studying, working, spending time with family and friends, being in a relationship, or having a hobby. So you might ask yourself, how might you shape your identity, and how can this be done? It can be done through identifying your values. And I'm not sure if many of you guys have done any work on values. Obviously, as you get a little bit older, it's something that we tend to do a lot more with athletes. And there's a little QR code there, and I will encourage you guys to scan that and possibly do this after this session. It doesn't take too long. It's a handful of questions, which helps with a personal values assessment. So what are values and why are they important? The principles of standards of behaviours, one's judgment of what is important in life. So in other words, values act as a reference guide or a compass for who we are, how we act in particular situations, and where we want to go to in life. So for example, trust and caring are two key values of mine. Where having meaningful relationships with others is important to me and is central to my decision making. This can be at home with my partner, or even with my job, speaking to athletes, or on the footy field with all my footy mates. I live through these values each day, and depending on certain situations, my values can change and shift in response to different changing life conditions. If we possess a clear sense of purpose and direction and act accordingly to our values, then we feel less likely and overwhelmed, or to be knocked off course when we're experiencing challenging situations. There's no right or wrong values, and they're different for everyone. One person might most value the love and care for the environment, being honest, having a good work ethic, while someone else could be giving people a fair go or being creative and always doing their best. Whatever the history of our values, they are essentially our sense of right way for us to live and to identify ourselves. And when we act in accordance with our values, we generally see our life as purposeful and meaningful. I'm not sure if many of you guys have seen this picture before, but obviously it's so true to how life is. In an ideal world, we would prefer everything to be in a straight line to achieve our goals. But unfortunately, there's going to be setbacks. This is no different to you as an athlete in your journey. Things such as injury, missing team selection, and right now the COVID pandemic. For most of you, it has derailed plans to ski overseas. It's cancelled domestic competitions, and it's potentially put a hamper on your development. As an athlete, your journey will transition through different parts, which may not be smooth sailing, such as finishing school, deciding on whether to study or get an apprenticeship or a job, making your first national team, being in a relationship, or eventually retiring from sport. These key transition points will have an adverse impact on your overall well-being and emotions. Whilst planning and having a clear goal in mind is ideal and highly encouraged, there will be times that things don't go according to plan, and they may sidetrack you in other directions. And some of you guys have maybe experienced this already. So how can you regroup, stay on course, or get back on track when things do go sideways? So overcoming setbacks. The first thing that we need to understand is that setbacks are the reality of life and sport. So if you can normalize along the path to anything worth doing, you're going to do is going to potentially fail, get sidetracked, you're going to get distracted, you might change your mind, then it doesn't need to mean much when it does actually happen. Instead of immediately going into a non-supportive story like, oh, I got injured again, or I can't travel overseas, or we'll forget the rest, I totally suck, or fall off track from studying and I'm not cut for this. You can simply say, yes, I'm here because I'm doing it because it's my dream to be an elite athlete and this is part of my journey. So it's accepting that sometimes you will have a setback in your life and it's how you respond to it. Reaching out for support, whether this is a friend, mum or dad, your coach, your teacher, share where you're at and get a little bit of empathetic. So when you can move out of self-blaming fast, you can get help when you need it, whether it's for extra time to finish an assignment or money to buy some new equipment. Trusted support networks will remind you that you're still fully capable of achieving your dreams, regardless of what happens to you. Your support network will be more and more important to help you achieve goals in life. It's a matter of identifying who this is and how you can work with them when you need them the most. Pay attention to what's true. If your plans do get sidelined by you when it's something that's not in your control, be brutal and honest here because it's really easy to justify and excuse your way out of your dreams. So the question you might ask yourself, if something isn't moving forward or you're stuck, rethink back to why you're doing it, what you were doing in the first place, what is your end game, what are your goals, is this aligning to your values? By paying attention on what's true, it will often set you free. Recalibrate and reset. I think this is a kind of big buzzword at the moment, given the fact that we're kind of going through a pandemic. But it's time just to get back on track. Pull out your plan that you might have had, adjust accordingly, however, if it's big or small, and get moving again. Don't let distractions take out the rest of your year or your plans of focus. Focus on your goals, priorities, and get back at it. So get back in the game and take what you've learned to keep going. And finally, and most importantly, is managing your overall well-being and emotions. Like I said, over the last 18 months, we've certainly built a lot of resilience living through a pandemic, whether that's being isolated from loved ones, homeschooling for a lot of you guys, missing out on graduations and formals. Our emotions can affect our performance at school, on snow and off snow, and we do need to understand how best we respond emotionally to setbacks and situations. I apologise in advance, there is a little bit of writing on this, but I just want to briefly touch on the mental health continuum. Some of you guys might have seen this at school, some of you guys haven't, and I'll be really brief. So when we talk about well-being and managing our emotions, an easy way to kind of distinguish it or to show it on a piece of paper is looking at it as a continuum. The continuum represents feeling good at one end, which you'll see, and functioning well, through to severe symptoms of mental health conditions and others. So mental health is not fixed or a static state. We can move back and forth along the scale at different times during our life. So at one end of the continuum, which is the green side, people are generally well and healthy, showing resilience. There's high levels of well-being and you're performing at your best. Moving towards the middle, you might start to have difficulty coping, feeling tired and restless. And towards the end, people have difficulty coping, which may increase in severity and frequency. This might come from being angry, not attending training, struggling to sleep, you're always injured. At the red end of the continuum, people are likely to be experiencing severe symptoms and may be risk of self-harm. And that's when we need help. That's when we need to reach out for others for help, whether that's through school, through your athlete support program, whether it's in the sport, whether it's through mum and dad, whether it's through a doctor. It's important we recognise this because it's becoming more and more common for us to manage our own well-being, to ensure that we're functioning well and we're performing at our best. So we're spending more time on and off snow and at work or at school. I will be sending out these slides as well. So if you guys aren't reading everything that's on the slide, you can have a look at these at a later stage. So moving on from the wellbeing aspect, I want to touch base on dual career. Not sure if many of you guys have heard this already, but as you get into high performance sport, the word dual career becomes quite common because there's a big emphasis on ensuring that athletes do have dual careers, whether that's them studying or that's them working at the same time of doing sport. We know that high performance sport, especially Commonwealth Games, Paralympic and Olympic sport, probably don't get as much money as our professional sports do. So we do need to have something on the side that's going to be potentially funding us or something that we're going to be moving into when we leave sport. But earlier, as I referenced with the AIS research that was done and where those athletes were quoted, you can see here that nearly 72% of athletes that were surveyed believe that their sporting performance benefited from engaging in activities such as work or study outside of their sport. So this emphasises to you that having a dual career with sport can lead towards better performance outcomes down the track. Not only did athletes suggest their performance was positively impacted by their engagement in non-sporting pursuits, majority also stated that these activities helped them lengthen their sporting career. And like I alluded to earlier in this presentation, that longevity in sport is a key component of ours. We want to keep athletes in the game for longer. And whether that's keeping you engaged or keeping you mentally well, or if it's physically keeping you well on the snow, that is our end game. For a sport like skiing and snowboarding, it can be quite expensive to fund, especially as you progress your ways through the ranks. So by having a job and dreams of going to university and getting a sports scholarship to support your education or support your sporting endeavours can be added benefits to keeping you longer in sport. So we've just got another pulse check where I'd ask you guys to get your phones out again or to jump online to the Menti survey, and I will just get the next question up for you. And I'll share my screen. Just bear with me, guys. So hopefully that's working. The code for Menti is 72098532. And what I'm asking is, what are your career aspirations? Most of you guys, if you're still in school, some of you guys might not have any career aspirations yet, but it's really good to know what you guys want to do after school. Got a few physios there, builder, something in health and science, sports medicine, game developer. Yeah, that will be quite popular moving forward. Engineer, marketing, building or architect, going in the infantry as a soldier. Nice. Some good variety there to make cross-country skiing a more known sport in Australia. Nice. That's a different one, but that's good. It's good to have some aspirations around that. What else have we got here? Some type of design, finishing school with good marks and getting into medicine. Awesome. Be the best in my sport. Pediatric nurse, physio or coaching, health science, carpenter, or in-house design, journalist, engineer, to compete in World Cups and Olympics. Enjoy it while I'm there. Awesome. Some good variety there. So it's good to see that some of you guys have already got some plans or some aspirations for your career. I think it's quite important to be thinking about that now. And look, what you're thinking now might not be the same with what you end up in moving forward, because our lives rapidly change every day, and what was probably available 10 years ago and was common to get into is probably not as common as what it is now. And with technology and the internet, we know how popular that is and how much that world of work is expanding and exploding. So I know, like I said earlier, most of you guys are either at school, uni, working, or looking at options over the next few years, which will help shape your direction of your career. What we're going to do here is look at some key transition points at school, uni, and or work to provide you with some information on how best you can manage the pressures of sport with other commitments. One thing I will say, for some of you, further education such as uni won't be for you, and that is okay. There's plenty of options out there to help you establish your career, and some of you guys already listed in there that you do want to become tradesmen or women, which is another option. Regardless of it, uni isn't the be all and end all. But most of you guys, I'm assuming, would be within this range. There might be a couple of you guys that are younger. Some of the stuff that I do talk about is still applicable to you. So this first slide, obviously, for those that are in year 10 and 11, just some advice on where you're at the moment, if you haven't sought that within your school, is to obviously talk to your year coordinator or career advisor around your current options. Some of you guys might be going overseas this northern winter, and you might be going overseas again next year, which might put some pressure on you and your schoolwork. So it's important that communicating with your year coordinator or your career advisor early on to get the best advice on how you might be able to balance school. It might be condensing school for you, might be taking stuff on the road. Don't expect to do less, expect to do the same in a flexible way. So like I said, you might be doing things more condensed to what your peers might be doing, or you might be getting extra time. Some of you guys, I'm not sure if many of you guys online have already gone through year 10 and 11 and potentially done it over 2 years or 3 years to ensure that you could still ski or go overseas and compete for long periods of time. Choose your subjects for your individual needs. We know that a lot of parents may play a big influence on your subject needs. I think it's important that you have a say in what you want to do. For me personally, I never liked science. So when I got to year 11 and year 12, I didn't do a science subject. But that was for me. I wanted to always get into working in sport. And that's no different to yourself. And for some of you guys that want to be engineers or medicine, picking those subjects that might be applicable to you are quite important. Having self-awareness, I think that's probably one of the most important pieces out there, and you will develop this as you get a little bit older, but being more self-aware on what's needed for you the most. You can make your own decisions, you can reach out to people when you need that support, but having self-awareness is important as an athlete, because when you get into a high-performing environment, you do have a lot of stakeholders and people around you that are there to help you, and without you letting them know that you might need that help, you won't get that straight away. Communicate with your teachers and family. Obviously, that's a no-brainer. I think it's important to make sure you make good relationships with your teachers and your family to let them know of where you're at, and share your success with your school. I think that's a really important piece there to grow you as an athlete and your brand, but also to grow the sport of skiing and snowboarding in Australia. I think it's not a big sport compared to some of our soccers and netballs and crickets. I think the more stories we can share out there, the better, and the better it is for your athlete brand that you'll develop down the track. Those that are in year 12 and looking at first year of uni or currently working, obviously the focus right now is completing and receiving your ATAR and VCE. I think that's quite an important piece of work there. I know some of you guys have been affected by the extended dates, which has potentially put some pressure on getting into uni and getting accommodation if you want to travel away. Again, communicate with your coordinator and advisor. Looking at your course preferences for uni, I think is a quite important piece there too. I know that's probably hard for some of you guys that haven't been accepted into uni yet, but looking at your course preferences and seeing what might suit you when you get to uni, things do look a little bit different to what they are in school. Looking at the right uni for pathway for work, or that might suit your needs. For most of you guys that are going to uni, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but there's a lot of universities in Australia that support the elite athlete and have special programs in there that offer the balance and flexibility that athletes need for when you get into uni. Sometimes the unis that you might go to might have different demands and different requirements, but I know there's a fair few unis up in Queensland, like Griffith, up there has a really strong sports program that supports the balance of athletes and the demands that you might have. Try before you buy. A lot of you guys might have probably been impacted by this, and there might be some online ways of visiting unis virtually. But I think it's important to get a feel for where you're going to go. If you want to wait it out to next year when we're allowed to travel, maybe do that. What if things don't work out and you're not happy? That's okay. Like I said earlier, when you get to uni, a lot of students may not be studying the same thing, that they may not finish studying the same thing that they started. As I've said in there, you use your census state to your advantage. So you've generally got a fair few weeks up your sleeve before you can potentially change your degree. And that's okay. You might even change your degree 1 or 2 years into study. If you're not happy with what you're doing, there's always options. Like I said, a lot of people don't end up finishing their degree that they either start because it wasn't meant for them or it wasn't what they expected. Plan with your course coordinator, coaches, and your boss if you're working. I think it's quite important as you get a little bit older, as you start progressing, you're going to have a lot more priorities. Being planned is probably one of the most important skills that you will have as an athlete to ensure that you can focus on snow, but also you can understand when there's some key milestones that are required to be needed to be ticked off. And make yourself known with the elite athlete program. So those people that are going to uni at the moment or expecting to go to uni, I would encourage you to reach out to the uni to see if they've got an elite athlete program and to make yourself known, because they do provide a lot of support to you and your flexibility with some of your needs. So for the remainder of your degree, post work or study, and I won't touch too much on this because a lot of you guys probably aren't at that position yet, but just want to let you know that education is continuous throughout your life. You're always going to be learning, whether that's at school, uni, as an athlete, whether that's at work. Every day you're going to learn something new. Use an integrated planner outline in your IPP as well. Like I said, having some planning tools up your sleeve, even right now as students, for most of you guys, I think it's important to have that to help and assist with your prioritization and keeping you organized. As you get a little bit older, have a study or career pathway mapped out, and that's something there that can be done with some professional help, whether that's through your uni, whether that's with your athlete wellbeing and engagement manager, whether that's with some professional support away from snow. Be open to all opportunities. You will be presented with a lot of opportunities as you progress through your athlete career, and it's being open to those, but also being mindful of what you say yes to. Don't oversell yourself or don't overdo yourself at times, but looking at opportunities that might build some better skills and might build out your network, that might support your athletic journey down the track or might lead to a job into the future. And then again, at the bottom, communicate with your coaches and performance staff. That's such an important piece to the puzzle there. Like I said earlier, communicating with coaches, performance staff, parents. If you're doing things tough, if you need extra time for exams, if you need extra time off work, whatever it might be, communicating is the key to doing that. And just to finish this off, guys, there's just some top tips that I've put together for you guys to take away. And some of this stuff is that we've already spoken about, and being proactive rather than reactive. Again, plan and prioritize is a fundamental skill in high performance sport. Being organised, planning your time now will be something that you can use moving forward. Using a diary, a planner, or a time management app to help map out your key dates for exams, training, competition, or will help you keep on track and on time. Make use of your spare time to get ahead of homework, assignments that you could possibly do traveling, or allocate time on the weekends to ease pressure when they are busy periods or big training blocks that won't stress you out when you need to focus on sport. And think about goal setting. I think a lot of you guys will know a lot about goal setting, but think about long and short-term goals. and aspirations, not just for sport, but for your career. Utilize every bit of support offered because it all counts. Take advantage of added services such as tutoring, scholarships, counselling, or even for some of you, sponsorship. All the extra help that is offered to you through different stages of your development will benefit you in the long run. People such as career advisors, your year advisors, tutors, TAFE teachers, your bosses, your sport will provide you with opportunities and support when it's needed. Asking for help is not admitting weakness. Again, like I said earlier, communication is a fundamental skill, not just in sport, but in life. Asking questions for more advice, being curious, or needing more clarity isn't a sign of weakness, as it can help you move forward instead of being stuck in a situation which you might not be able to handle alone, or you might have much information about. Appreciate your support network. For a sport like skiing and snowboarding, where you might be on the road for long periods of time, having a solid support network is essential to help you through stressful times, whether that's being exams, leading into a competition, recovering from an injury. It's important that this is a two-way street where you stay in touch with someone, whether it's mum, dad, boyfriend, girlfriend, cousins. It's important to give back to them too. So making sure that you can support them when they need the support. Put your well-being first. To further iterate the earlier slide regarding the mental health continuum, your well-being can impact your performance and how you function on and off snow. If you're feeling stressed, anxious, or lonely, remember to talk to someone, whether that's your support network or help service. Do things that make you happy. Make sure you're eating and sleeping well, as this can impact your mood and your overall well-being. And lastly, have an interest away from sport. Engaging in activities or hobbies away from skiing or snowboarding is time away to relax and have fun away from sport, as well as keeping you grounded. Being exposed to different people and environments will develop you better as a person through building skills that can transfer and apply to your sporting career and professional career when you decide to leave sport. Even if you don't have many interests, you probably have more responsibilities than most people your age, so it's important to give yourself a break in order that you don't burn out. And that's it, guys. That's me. Hopefully I didn't speak too fast and there was some information there that you guys could take away. I know that some of the information that I presented might be stuff that you guys have already heard at school. It was obviously trying to reinforce some of that messages, but trying to reinforce the importance of being a balanced athlete through your high performance journey. As you progress, you're going to have more support around you, but there's also going to be a lot of pressure around you as well. And how you might be able to handle that pressure is how you develop those skills to handle those emotions, and using support networks along the way to support you, whether it's professional support or whether it's speaking to mum and dad or friend or your partner or boyfriend or girlfriend to help you get through some of those tougher periods. But again, just reiterating, having a balance is an important piece, an integral piece of performance, and hopefully it will give you longevity in sport.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. That was really insightful. I'm just hearing a bit of an echo with myself. Can you hear the same on your end, or is that not too bad?
No, I can't hear anything. All right.
Maybe we can take the slideshow down, if you like, and then just open up for question time. Does anyone have any questions, guys? Either in the chat, as I've just put in, or if anyone wants to pop their virtual hand up and ask anything about athlete wellbeing and engagement, the presentation at all, or around any of the tips and tricks that DJ had alluded to during the presentation. Any comments from anyone? Nothing from you, Abby Wilson? No? All right, fantastic. DJ, I just had one comment. I thought really insightful, fantastic presentation. I think, you know, a lot of the challenges that have sort of been at the forefront for me with this group this year is managing school, you know, amongst sport, and just trying to find that that balance around, and you talked a lot around finding the balance. And I think some people, maybe interpret that balance meaning you've got to do an equal amount of everything to be balanced. And I think, one of the points for me that if you are to push really hard with a certain sport or try and be a really high performer, that there needs to be maybe a little bit of sacrifice across the board, but having balance with those other activities as well. Do you have maybe some commentary around that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question there, Bondi, and I suppose it's different for everyone. And as you, I suppose, progress through that high performance journey, there will be a lot more sacrificing as athletes that you will need to make, and you will miss significant days of the year, whether it's birthdays, weddings, funerals, things like that. And as athletes, it's up to you on how best you might manage your emotions at that time, and whether it's sacrificing things now that you might be doing is a learning curve for when you do progress through that high performance journey is a good way to potentially start. And like I said earlier, especially with school, for many of you guys, that looking at pockets of time to possibly catch up or to get ahead is probably a good opportunity. And that might mean not being able to hang out with your friends, going for a ride up Threadbow, or going for a fish in Jindy for those people that live around the Snowy Mountains. That there is some sacrifices there from a social aspect, which might help with the balance, but sometimes the demands of sport become quite heavy. And right now I can speak personally around the work that I'm doing with a lot of the para athletes. There's less than 6 months to go until the Paralympics, and a lot of the conversations right now with the athletes are around focusing on their performance outcomes, and the things that do matter and ensuring that there is balance do get pushed to the side a little bit, because there's a bigger goal for them right now, and that's competing at the Paralympics and trying to win a medal for Australia. And that will be no different for you guys either, especially as you get closer to competitions. The focus will be on snow, and for some of you guys that do go overseas and will be trying to balance a bit of school and snow, just looking at the best time to do a couple of hours of schoolwork. There won't be an expectation of you guys to be doing hours of schoolwork a day when you're traveling, and you could probably smash it all out in a couple of hours, or you could do it in a block in one day for the week, if that works for you.
Yeah, that's great, DJ. And probably back to your point during the presentation about not doing less, but just managing your time a little bit better overall. So I think that's really, really important. And I think the other point you made was, sharing those successes with your school. I think sometimes these younger athletes, when they start to become quite good in their snow sport, their school might be less inclined to maybe give them the time off that they need to train, or not necessarily trust the student's ability to catch up and be a little bit less lenient. But I think if you guys are out there and you're doing super well with your sport, celebrate that success with your school, and it might actually make them a little bit more inclined to give you some flexibility. Would you agree, DJ, or any strategies around that?
100%. And I think not just sharing with your school, but sharing with Snow Australia too. I know some of you guys have already been putting the spotlight, and there's been some stories about you. But like I said earlier, as an athlete, you obviously build an identity that's associated with your sport, and that's your brand, athlete brand. As you progress through your athlete journey, your brand tends to get more and more valuable, and how you act and how you're perceived on the outside to potential sponsors, to your community, can play a massive impact on how well you might be supported down the track. If you're living by your values, where you're honest, you've got high integrity, those things all matter as an athlete and as a person, and trying to position yourself at a younger age as you get older is important. It's important to think about now. But like I said, any story out there is good exposure for you personally. It might put some pressure on you as well, because obviously some people start to get to know you, but it won't be any different to when you are representing Australia at the Olympics or Paralympics, and you are getting bombarded with DMs from fans and things like that, and how you manage that learning at a younger age will make you a better person as you grow up.
Yeah, it's a great point, and probably a really nice segue into one of our other webinars, DJ, which will be around social media, guys, and sort of building your brand and how to promote yourself in that regard. So I think all really important points. Any other questions there from anyone, either parents or athletes out there for either Daniel or myself?
Bondi, I might just make a comment. Obviously, there might be some parents online and for some of you athletes, but my role and how it works with the ETP will mainly be around resourcing and providing you guys with education. So obviously, this webinar is part of that. And over the next kind of 6 months, I'll be working closely with Ben to develop a source of resourcing for you guys to use and to help you with things, because my aim is to make sure when you guys get into an institute program is that you're somewhat ready and understand what athlete wellbeing engagement is. It's like no other service. It's like any other service. Sorry, like it is strength and conditioning. It's like physio. It's like recovery. It's another service that you will have as an athlete as you get into the institutes, and we want to make sure that you guys are equipped and ready with knowledge and skills in that space to ensure that balance is starting at a young age.
Really nice summary. Did you see Mac's question there, DJ?
Yes. I'm not sure yet, Mac. If my body stays intact, I will be coming back to play for the Bush Pigs. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit older now and a little bit more fragile.
Nice. If there's not any other questions, I'd just like to, put out a really big thank you to you, DJ. We sort of put you on the spot a week or so ago, so to get something together as polished as that and as insightful, I think really nice to just plant the seed with this group around athlete wellbeing engagement. And like you said, it is a service that is part of the broader performance services. If some of you athletes are to go through to institute programs in the next few years. So I think just gaining an appreciation of what it is and how it can actually support you guys is fantastic. A really big thank you to everyone that has joined, all the athletes and parents on the call. And I'd like to extend a really big thank you to Rebecca Neal from CESA, where, for those of you that don't know, Snow Australia does partner really closely with Southeast Sports Academy in the development of the Emerging Talent Program. So really big thanks to Beck Neal, who was instrumental in putting together a lot of work behind the scenes to get tonight off the ground and then successive webinars as well. So thank you very much, Beck. And big thanks to you, DJ. So if anyone's got follow-up questions, DJ did have his email on one of those slides. Obviously,